Today's guest deals with death every day, but has she planned well for living a long, healthy life? Welcome to the show, Janet.
Thanks for having me, Sybil.
So tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, I started in funeral service about 30 years ago, and over those 30 years, my job has changed, but my longevity in the profession has been serving families and helping them through the most difficult times in their lives.
Well, I can imagine, and I don't think people get too excited about planning a funeral like they would a wedding. Yet it's important for people to give that some thought. Would you agree?
Yeah, and what we really do is celebrate lives.
Well, that sounds like a much more positive way to talk about funeral planning, if it can be a celebration of life and a very positive experience.
That's right.
You know, it's a tough one because we all die. We know we're going to die. We just don't know when or how. And yet people have their head in the sand and don't want to plan their own funeral.
That's right. That's very common. And in addition to that is the preparedness with having a valid will, for example. A lot of people don't realize that when someone passes away, the person that has the legal authority to even make those arrangements to begin that process is the executor named in the will. So no matter what age you are, what your status is in life, you really should have a valid will.
So if we were to jump ahead and think about your end of life and your celebration experience, what would you want to make sure you accomplished along the way?
In terms of my funeral planning?
Just for life, for living today.
Well, I would like to continue working in the profession that I work. I enjoy it, and I will do so as long as I have that passion to serve. Down the road, I'd like to enjoy a retirement where I'm financially secure and independent.
Yes.
And when the opportunity arises to either travel or perhaps get a golf membership and enjoy some great times out on the golf course, I'd like to be able to do that without worrying about financial issues.
So how do you feel right now with your financial situation? Would you say that you feel totally in control, or is there a few little nagging questions that you'd like to have answered?
Well, I'm feeling that I've prepared myself well over the years. I've always contributed to an RSP and have some savings. I am married and have been for 30 years.
Good for you.
And we've maintained our own financial independence, which I think is really critical.
Yes.
To a long marriage. I always say separate bank accounts, separate bathrooms. But
wow. And that works for you.
That works
and there
for
really
us.
is, you know, for most people, there is no right or wrong on whether you should commingle your investments or not. So to hear that you keep them separate and that works for you is great.
Yeah. So continuing on that, as I get closer to requirement, some of the questions I would have as to when you start drawing on your CPP, is it better to hold off onto that? How much am I going to need to continue on living an enjoyable life after retirement?
So your big question for me today then sounds like, how much do you need to save in order to retire?
Absolutely, that's the big question.
Well, I can answer that for you, and I will in a minute. So don't go away. Find out Janet's number, the dollar amount she needs to save by retirement after the break.
The Wealthy Life is brought to you by investment dealer Raymond James. Life well planned. See what a Raymond James advisor can do for you.
Welcome back. Let's find out how much money Janet needs to save before she can retire. So Janet, you want to know how much you need to have accumulated to create this nice nest egg. And as we go into a financial planning conversation, retirement planning, I have to come back and ask you, did you plan for your own funeral?
Absolutely.
You did, so you
indeed.
practice what you preach.
Absolutely.
Now, is it a one-time exercise?
Well, you know, people's situations change, their interests and hobbies change, and the services, funeral services, are celebrating one's life is all about what they've been doing and through their lives. So it can change.
Well, I think looking at funeral and looking at retirement planning actually do go hand in hand, because I think ahead, when I die, what do I want people saying about me? And what is it that I wish that I had accomplished? And so as you're going into the retirement planning stage, what are some of those things on your bucket list that you want to accomplish?
Wow, there's so many things. I love to be in my garden. I'd love to be able to continue on doing voluntary work.
Yeah.
Family, of course, is very important to me. Being able to take care of my family, hopefully some grandchildren one day. There's many things, and traveling.
Okay, so if you won $20 million on the 649, what would you do with the money?
Wow, where would I start with it? I think a significant amount of it would be charitable work, which would go into my volunteering aspects.
That's great.
I pride myself being quite creative, and if I could bring that to any sort of charitable work, that would be on the top of the list. Certainly would like to do some traveling. Part of that traveling might have to do with that charitable work.
How much money do you think you will need to retire? If you were retired today, what would be a comfortable number per month?
$5,000 a month.
$5,000 a month.
me.
That sounds reasonable. And is that just for your half? Because you and
That's
your
for my half.
hubby keep things separate? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Oh, so then he would take care of his own, and together it's even better.
Right.
Great. And when do you want to retire?
I would think in 10 years, I'd be looking at that. But again, if I'm still having fun, we'll see.
And do you have an idea in your mind of how much you think you're going to need to save?
I think I have an idea, but I'm interested, Sybil, to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, when I look at retiring in 10 years, looking for a $5,000 a month income stream, having that income stream pay for probably another 30 plus years, assuming around a 2% inflation rate, if you could earn an average rate of return of 5% on your money over your lifetime, which would be a conservative balanced portfolio, you'd need about $1 million in savings in 10 years to generate the income you need. Now, in addition, you're going to have income sources coming from CPP and old age security, assuming you qualify for both of those. You've lived in Canada for
All
more
my
than
life.
18 years. And have you been contributing to the Canada Pension Plan?
Absolutely, all my
Good.
life.
So you'll have both of those sources of income coming in. Now, one question I get asked often is if people should take their CPP early or late. And I'll tell you, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. But just from a mathematical perspective, if you plan on living to age 75, 80, or beyond, you're better to wait. You'll have more money coming out of the plan if you live longer than those years.
Okay.
But then you have to balance out needing it now versus needing it later.
Right.
So, need $1 million. If you don't have it yet, you've got 10 years to start saving. Some other tips is if you have extra equity in your home and you still don't have quite the money you need, maybe downsize your home at retirement to free up some capital to top it up. A couple other last minute things. Consider working longer if you're at a shortfall. Maybe work on living on less and save more. If you can do those three things, you're going to have a very happy retirement.
That's terrific. Thank you, Sybil.
Well, Janet, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Stay tuned. Up next, we'll cover the top tips to protect yourself from fraud and financial scams.